Nicole, and I'm a single mother too. I'm here this morning to tell you why I have decided to share my story about my experience with legal aid. I've joined this case because I think we can do better. We have to do better for women and children needing access to the courts. I had my son when I was quite young, and I never received any support to help raise him. I worked very hard to pursue a post-secondary education after he was born so I could provide financial stability for him going forward. After graduating from college, I found stable employment that allowed us to live comfortably. In 2011, I met someone who I thought would complete our family, and we later planned to have a baby. But after I became pregnant, my ex suddenly became controlling and very physically, sexually, and psychologically abusive. After my daughter was born, he threatened to kill me and to kidnap her from the NICU at the hospital. The maternity ward was placed on lockdown, and the RCMP arrived at the hospital and recorded my ex uttering threats against me. He was charged, pled guilty, and was sentenced to probation for a year. The threats and the abuse towards me and my family did not end there. My ex told me several times that he would make it his life goal to keep me and my daughter separated. I was left with no choice but to apply to the courts for full custody of my daughter and for a restraining order against him to protect me and my children. My ex hired a lawyer to counterclaim against me. He too was applying for full custody and was asking the courts to remove my newborn baby from my care immediately. I was absolutely terrified when he hired a lawyer. I couldn't afford a lawyer on my own. I was only receiving maternity benefits at the time, so I applied for legal aid, but my application was denied because I held just over $8,000 in RRSPs. In order to become eligible for coverage, I had to liquidate my RRSPs, which I had intended to put towards a down payment for a home for my family in the future, and instead use the money to pay off debts. After using up those RRSPs, I applied for legal aid again and was approved. The custody battle that ensued for the next 18 months was an all-consuming nightmare. My ex bullied me, intimidated me, and humiliated me in court and throughout the court process. He became aggressive and intimidating to me and to my witnesses, which included a social worker from MCFD, and the sheriffs had to intervene on more than one occasion inside the courthouse during our scheduled hearings. Finally, in June 2014, I thought my torment had ended when my ex and I reached a consent order. He was to have no access or rights to my daughter whatsoever, and I received a protection order that prohibited him from contacting me and my children. I don't know what I would have done if we hadn't reached an agreement at that time, because I was almost out of legal aid hours and I didn't have any money to keep paying my lawyer out of pocket. My relief was short-lived. Just 6 months later, the RCMP phoned me with a duty to warn. They had received a report that my ex was allegedly making plans to kill me. Horrified and without a lawyer at the time, I applied to the courts for a new protection order, and I dealt with my ex's lawyer directly. When my ex contested my application, I simply could not continue to represent myself on my own. I have no legal training, was terrified of dealing with the aggressive opposing counsel, and was intimidated by the process of trying to cross-examine my abusive ex and the expert witnesses that were to be called. I applied for legal aid again, but was denied in part because I was previously provided coverage, and also because my ex was abiding by the terms of the no contact order. I appealed the decision, but that was denied too. Fearful of the threats to our safety, I went back to my previous lawyer to ask her for help in obtaining a non-expiring protection order. Even though she agreed to represent me at a reduced rate, I have spent more than an entire university term's worth of student loans on lawyers' fees, which I have to pay back with interest, and I have been living off of credit cards to make ends meet. I have also had to forego the required therapies for my daughter, who has autism, because all the money has had to gone to finding protection through the law. These legal fees are not optional for me. They're a necessity if I want to protect my life and my children's lives in the best way that I know how. This morning, I am choosing to use my voice. I'm choosing to step out of my fear-induced silence. I'm choosing to no longer be a victim. Today, I'm choosing to share my story with those who are willing to listen in order to be an advocate for other women and children in this province, because we can do better for them. I'm told that we have very good family laws on the books, but those laws mean nothing if women and children don't have access to justice.